the owner of the patent trying to raise the possibility of creating a situation where a lock-in sort of situation where you cannot but license and take the patent, and the patent owner goes on to say that this is the norms, these are the conditions where you have to agree to take my license, and without that I'm not going to license. And that becomes very, very crucial and sensitive when the essential factor comes in, and the prospective licensee would not be able to work the patent without taking the license. So that sort of situation would be, the licensee would be held up by the patent owner if there is the essential factor coming in, or the essential facilities doctrine coming in. From an IPR angle, if you see, the problem that the IP owner and the patent owner might face, and they face, both the sides it happens, they would see that these guys, the prospective licensees, are actually going into the market and using it without my permission, and is going on continuing the alleged infringement because they have not taken the license, and says that unless you license it, we would not going to pay the royalty and we will not close the license, we'll carry on negotiating the license. And what typically in a litigation scenario, there are cases where we have seen the concept of willing licensee and unwilling licensee, willing licensor, unwilling licensor comes in. When we talk in these terms, the crux of the matter is dealt with by a sort of focus on a doctrine which is the essential facilities doctrine, wherein the patent which has gone into the standards and cannot be worked without, and the standards cannot be followed, enabled without working the patent, makes the entire scenario dependent on those patents and makes it an essential, makes those patents essential. Now in that setup, where we say that the patents became essential, how do they become essential? Quite often we have seen, even earlier when we have discussed this today, it seems to people that all of a sudden someone would declare that these are my patents which are essential, and it becomes essential. Unfortunately, that's erroneous. Severe competition, serious competition takes place in the standards development organizations, where the competing technologies come in and the best or the most efficient is adopted as a standard. Now, because there is a possibility where once the standard is adopted, if there is proprietary technology, if there are patented technology, it will become essential. For that reason, typically the standards the standards development organizations, they require certain checks and balance. One is early disclosure. When the parties are participating in the standards formation, if they have patents over the technology which is competing, they would have to declare that yes, I have patented technology, number one. Number two is that they have to mandatory license on FRAND terms. Quite often when we discuss about FRAND, we obviously speak out and say fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory, but we often mistake and consider it is equitable, that for every player it should be the same royalty. And that is erroneous, because at the end of the day, it is the market which will decide what should be the royalty rate. it is not equitable. So this is one thing which we quite often mistake or miss out the point. So this is a check process. This is a process to make sure that the essential facilities which has been created because of the patent in the technology which is being adopted as standard is balanced, is accessed. Now, when we go into when we really navigate ourselves in deep seas, the point of couple of things which it is important for us to consider. Number one is quite often we raise a criticism and say that for standard essential patents, the standard essential patents are different, they are essential. Without them, the technology cannot be, the standard cannot be met. For that reason, and also, not that the licensor is not willing to license, the licensor is willing to license, and the licensee is also willing to take a license. So there is a question of remuneration, royalty. It is not that there is no royalty. For that reason, there should be no injunction. But this is one of the fundamental mistakes, because possibility of injunctive relief, not just it is a statutory right under the patent law in India as well as other countries as per their jurisdiction, not going to that, but also that's the only remedy in the hands of the patentee. So the patentee would not be able to move an inch if that right is taken off. Now, at the same time, we have also to understand that the injunctive relief should not just come at the drop of a hat. There should be proper investigation of the matter by the adjudicator, the Honorable Court, the competent authority, and then look into the possibilities of the prospective licensee agreeing to participate in the front license discussion, and then both the licensor and licensee is ready to close. Of course, this is an ideal situation. It may not happen, and if it does not happen, it falls back to the adjudicator to decide what should be the course of action. Quite often, we have been referring to some of the cases that are ongoing cases in India, and we have said that the court has given certain direction and has decided on some matter, or we have said that the competition adjudicator, CCI, has decided and moved in. The point is both are interim. The CCI's decision is prima facie order. It is yet to complete the investigation, and so it is premature to decide or make any comment as to where it will lead to. At the same time, the orders of the Honorable High Court of Delhi are all interim orders, and only the closure of the trial we will understand where it leads to. But it is important to understand that parties definitely would try to do forum shopping, because the parties at the end of the day would like to win, whether their situation is an ideal situation or not. So the regulators also need to navigate in a manner that they are not falling prey to forum shopping. And there is no issue of one adjudicator being the one which should address all the issues. There are different issues. There are market-related issues being looked into by the competition authority, and a completely different set-off of the entire patent, how it is working or how it should be worked, is being handled by the honorable courts. So they both are in their own place. There is no question of one superseding the other. Fundamentally, I'm not going into technically who can do what, so not going into that area. So the point which we also need to look at when we are navigating, if we are parties, both the parties, we need to look into is grant-back licenses, the grant-back clauses in licenses. Obviously, sometimes it is essential, sometimes needed if the parties as per the technology licensing being done, that needs to be decided. Per se, it is not a violation, but the grant-back licenses can be unreasonable. Of course, it can be unreasonable, and that's why it is important to see that they are catered to properly. Before I close, a couple of points that I've picked up. There definitely, before I close, 2 points I will raise. One is discussed, we have discussed about the smallest sellable unit and whether the royalty rate should be on the basis of smallest sellable unit. I think the adjudicators should not come in and decide on the business models if these business models do not disturb the market, do not create an unfair market condition. The smallest sellable unit is one business model and one way of looking at the entire market scenario, especially in these smartphone and tablet field in that industry sector. But that's not all-encompassive, because it is not the mere chip which add-on innovation in the chip which is to be calculated. The entire chip, as it enables the technology to proliferate, creates the demand in the market and the value of the product in the market. It is not just the single sellable unit which is contributing. It is the entire thing which is contributing. It is not that you have a writing instrument, a pen, which for some reason has a patent, and there is a cartridge ink which fits on. So you can have two separate patents, and you should not consider the entire pen. But the point is that if you can have a separate cartridge and you can use someone else's cartridge also. But the point is, if it is a pen where the whole system is embedded, there is no question of trying to find out which one is the value addition done, and it is not possible to do in that manner, number one. Number two is, even from a business perspective, the point is, at the end of when you get a comprehensive license, that includes the separate negotiations all completed and done. The transaction cost, if someone thinks that only by charging on the smallest sellable unit, that the transaction, there will be absolutely, that is the best and it will reduce the price. It is not correct, because the transaction cost in licensing, the different other aspects which goes in to create the complete product will not come down on, it will not be able to be excused. The second point which was raised also regarding patent pools, definitely patent pools are contributory, and they are absolutely positive, but we have to understand that the patent pools are voluntary. The point is, the patent pools will work if the members contributing to the patent pool realizes that there is an interest, there is a benefit in doing so. And that is why the patent pools, if the parties are not interested in gaining from the patent pool, they would not participate in the patent pool. Number two is, we have seen patent pools, successful patent pools, but with those patent pools, we can give examples of via licensing. Just one, I'm trying to restrain the time limit. So, did it bring in some add value? Did it bring in some add value, and was it successful? Yes, to the extent it has contributed. Did it remove the conflicting issues in SEPs? No, it did not, because it is not the all-in-all solution. So patent pools would be there in its own position, and also non-patent, if someone is not interested in contributing to the patent pool, they would not contribute. So thank you very much. With the last point, I would like to close that what the Honorable Chair had mentioned, referring to the US jurisdiction, that the competitors, the regulator should regulate competition, not the competitors. So in India as well as in other jurisdictions also, it must be seen that the business models are not attacked, but the competition is enabled. With that, I will close. Thank you very much.